today we're going to have a look at an interesting pen I found. This is a writer's edition Montblanc pen. I am carefully opening the box. This pen was lent to me by Joost Appelboom from Appelboom Pennen. Slipcase, yeah. Pen comes out, that is, box comes out. As it is a writer's edition, I like these boxes that are like a book. They look like a book, they're not a book. In there is a fairly extensive booklet that explains everything about the pen and all that. A service guide, which is also an entire booklet in itself. So I mean it's a fairly complete package. Then there is the actual pen, which is resting in its little pen bed. Not right now, but it could be in there. And then you have the pen. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the pen. I'm going to cover the parts of the pen. I'll tell you what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and then I'll do a writing sample. But first of all, thank you to Joost for lending me the pen. I actually got quite a couple of review requests for this specific writer's edition. It's a popular author, so I appreciate the opportunity to review this and share my thoughts with you. Here we have the pen. Alright, let's start with just going through it. And I'll try to explain some of the parts as I get to it, because as with a lot of writer's editions, special editions, Montblanc does, there's a lot to see on this pen. Okay, so we have the Montblanc, top of the Montblanc. Don't ever call it a snowflake because the word will explode. Then we have this cap. You see it sort of has these rivets going on, and that's because the model of the pen is inspired by, it's the Antoine de Saint-Exupery, right? That's the person it was named after. The model was inspired by his Caudron Simon airplane, and he wrote a famous novel called Vol de Nuit. So it's supposed to look a bit like an airplane, and I think they captured that very well with those rivets. It's especially from a distance, it's fairly subtle, but when you get close you really see it, and I think it's pretty nicely made. Okay, the author's autograph, as always, is on the pen, which is kind of neat. Then we have the clip, which is also sort of like mechanical looking, which I enjoy. A lot of the trims of the pen kind of are supposed to look like cockpit dials and such, like stuff in the cockpit. So you have this nice ring here. Then you have a center band on the pen, which says Montblanc on I think 3 or 4 sides. So we have that. Then we have the barrel. It's a fine nib, so it's stickered. And then here at the piston turning knob, you have these geographical coordinates. Those are just coordinates that refer to specific important cities in the life of the author, and you can look them all up. I'm not going to go through the list. Trust me, they're important cities in the life of the author. Alright? Cap unscrews, and you have that nice sort of ribbed band there, so it's actually a pleasant uncapping action, which I enjoyed. I'm just seeing if the nib is clear. Yes, it's clear. Just wiping off a little bit of ink so you can really see. The nib has a star on it. Now, as I said, don't confuse that for the Montblanc star. That is the star that guided the Little Prince. So it's another reference to the work of the author. And of course there is some other stuff on there, right? There's the 4810, height of the Montblanc mountain. It says, I'm pretty sure it says 18K. So that's the nib. It says Montblanc. It says 2017 because the 2017 writer's edition and all that. Then we have the section, again a lot of chrome, and this the color is supposed to be the night sky, as the Éxupery saw it from his plane as he was flying, so they captured that in the section as well. And there is the feed and the threads. Just so you know, it's not a particularly small pen. It's about a 146 sized pen, and I found it pretty comfortable. Even though there's a lot of metal on it, it doesn't feel super heavy. As to posting, not possible. This pen does not post. I do like that you have this long piston turning knob, and what I really liked about the pen is the overall shape. It really tapers down very nicely. It's very nicely tapered. I like that visually a lot. So there you have the parts of the pen. What do I like about it? What do I not like about it? Let's start with what I like. There's a lot of little things I like. Montblanc typically really puts in nice details to honor an author, like these geographical coordinates, like the plane dials and such. It's all there. I like that. I like the looks of this pen. It has, because of those fake rivets, it has a bit of a steampunk sort of look to it, which I think is pretty cool, and it really works. I like that. One thing that I really enjoyed about this particular pen is it has a fine nib that really writes very, very pleasantly. Very pleasant writer, and I was really pleasantly surprised by that. A nice fine line, but a very smooth performance. So that's really good. Because there's so much metal on the pen, as opposed to the regular precious resin, it feels solid. It's a solidly made pen. You feel that in the weight. You feel that just in the way it feels when you hold it, and I think that's very cool too. Now, one thing to edge into things I don't like so much, it's definitely more expensive pen. This one retails at Appelboom for 910 euros, and that's quite a lot. Let's be fair, that's quite a lot. Relatively speaking, as far as Montblanc pens go, we all know it could be a lot worse. But still, it's an expensive piece. It's an expensive pen. It's not a light purchase for most of us, I think. But I was expecting worse, to be honest. Now that's of course a slightly subjective thing, because for some people this would be pocket change, but that's one thing. One thing that I really missed on this pen, and that's pretty much the case in all of Montblanc's metal pens, is the lack of an ink window. I would really like to be able to see how much ink I have left, because with a piston filler there's no way of telling if there is no ink window. And that's something I really miss. If I have to nitpick, I would say that for a relatively long barrel, the section I find relatively short, especially because the threads already start there. So I would have enjoyed a longer section without threads, because I do feel them. It's almost impossible for me not to feel them. And yet, given how pleasantly the nib writes, I really find this a comfortable pen. It's just fun to use, price notwithstanding. So yes, the price could be considered high. That's the way it is. You also know you're buying a Montblanc, so you know you're not going to spend just a couple of dollars on this pen. That's the way it is. So I find it interesting. I like the tributes. I remember with the William Shakespeare, there was so much detail. Every little thing having its own significance. With this pen, I get the feeling there's a little bit less pumped in there. Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. In all, I think this is a very comfortable, pleasant pen, and I know there is an enormous amount of Éxupery fans out there, and this definitely honors the author. So I think Montblanc has done that well. Okay, having said that, what you want to know is how it writes, right? It's an expensive pen. Let's see how this stocks up. So that's what we're going to do next. Writing sample, measurements of the pen, as well as high-resolution pictures will be on the website, sbrebrown.com. A kind thank you again to Joost for lending me the pen. I appreciate it. Now let's see how it writes. I hope this was useful so far, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye. Okay, so here we go with, because the shadow is a little hard to pick up all the detail. But anyway, here we go with the Montblanc. Now listen. I'm not going to write down Montblanc Writer's Edition Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, because that will be half of the length of this review. Okay, so I'm just going to say de Éxupery. That's a particularly bad X, even for my doing, so too bad. This was a fine nib, and the ink is just the Montblanc Royal Blue. Okay. Now, as I said, I really love this nib. It writes well. It's, for me, the perfect amount of feedback. It's not a buttery smooth nib. It's by no means scratchy. It's a really nice tactile sensation as you write with this. And I really like that. A bit of fast writing. Nice and wet, without being an excessive gusher. I like it. Okay, so I just said wetness. Pretty good, not excessive, pretty good. Line variation. Can squeeze out some. But it's not super flexy. If you really want to, you can turn it over, right upside down, but you're already using a fine nib here, so you go from fine to extra fine. And that's all. Really pleasant, because the weight of the pen, it glides across the paper in a very, very pleasant manner. So I really enjoyed this. Joost, thanks a lot for sending me the pen. Lending me the pen, I should say. I hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye.
Bye.